77 WABC and Bergen Newbridge Medical Center honor the life of legendary broadcaster and our friend, Ernie Anastas.
Hi, it's Ernie Anastas. You know, your thoughts can affect how you feel. Bergen Newbridge Medical Center is the largest hospital in New Jersey, providing comprehensive, equitable, compassionate, and high-quality emergency inpatient and outpatient medical care, plus mental health services and substance use disorder treatment. The Bergen Newbridge team can address your total health needs in one convenient location. Call 201-225-7130 for an appointment or newbridgehealth.org.
Listen, all you New Yorkers. Taxi! Okay, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
Talk Radio 77 WABC.
You know what I like? I like live radio, especially on the weekends. I'm Jake Novak. This is WABC Talk Radio 77, 7:03, almost 7:04 on the East Coast. And I want to get you updated on the big stories right now and give you a little bit of analysis and then introduce our very, very important, well-read, well-experienced guest in just a moment. But I think that the most important two words Americans should know and people all over the world should know right now are totally unacceptable. Quote, totally unacceptable. That's President Trump's response to Iran's response to the terms we've been banding about trying to end this war. It doesn't look like Iran is willing to give up their nuclear program. I mean, to call this suicidal and fanatical is probably an understatement. And so here we are. And President Trump vowing that Iran will no longer laugh at the United States anymore, as it has for 47 years since 1979. Does that mean the bombing's going to start again? You know me. For those of you who have been listening to me over the years, you know that the first place I like to look are the markets. Not because I'm money obsessed. I'm really not. I promise. If I were, I would have more money. But because I like to take a look at what the people with the skin in the game have to say about this. The people who would actually lose or make money based on what they see the news as being. And we're seeing a somewhat a reaction that seems to be they're somewhat starting to bet on hostilities starting again. Oil is up, not tremendously so, but 3% is still a significant move up. $98.41 on oil. If they thought the shooting was going to start in a second, we'd be at 110, 120, but still moving up 3%. Stocks are going down in the futures. We're down 129, 130 points on the Dow futures, which again, not a huge drop. What we're seeing is a cautious move by investors, people with skin in the game, because they just don't know as much. Not because they don't want to make money on it, but because they don't know how exactly this is going to shake out. But they're making a small bet now on the shooting starting again. They may be wrong. But let's get to someone we really want to talk to about this. This is our breaking, developing story in the world and in the United States right now. And it's someone who I'm proud to really say has become a friend of mine in the last couple of years. And he's really an amazing guy. Colonel Rob Maness, U.S. Air Force retired. He has an incredible resume, including expertise in our nuclear arsenal, expertise on a number of things, expertise in our relationship with NATO. And now, for the first time, he is an author. And the name of the book is called, it's a long title, so everyone listen to this. What You Can Do About It. Taking Real Action Against Corruption, Radicalism, and Moral Decay to Save America. Geez, what else are you going to solve, Colonel? Anyway, Colonel Maness, we're going to talk about the book in a second, but I want to get your initial impressions of what went down this weekend, what went down just in the last couple of hours. Iran basically coming back with no real honest response to our demands.
It's typical, Jake. Thanks for having me on,
Sure.
my friend. It's typical. Look, these are Islamists. Let's just remind America one more time. These are Islamists. The country is run by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, not the political people and not the mullahs, even though they all agree Islam is the right way to go, but they're liars. They cannot be trusted. You cannot negotiate with them in good faith. You cannot cut a deal with them. They understand one thing, force and power. That is it. And if you appear to be weak to them at all, they will come at you with this kind of crap. This is the second time now, and I'm glad the president finally said it. Totally unacceptable. He gets it. I just think he wants to go the extra mile to allow for a peace deal to happen. But unfortunately, these animals, they don't believe in that. They want your women and children to be their property, and they want you either to pay the jizya tax or convert or be dead. I mean, that is it. And that is the way Islam works. And these people are not going to give in. They're going to continue to pursue this nuclear weapon. We're going to have to go in and either get them to capitulate, collapse their government by cutting off all of their funds, regardless of the pain level it takes in our economy, and keep our resolve up, or they will get this nuclear weapon. And does anybody out there believe that the Iranians will not use a nuclear weapon if they actually get it?
Yeah, we're talking to Colonel Rob Maness, U.S. Air Force retired, and the author of a new book, What You Can Do About It. There's a little bit more to the title, too, but I really like hitting that first. Colonel, what I've been saying, especially since the war began and we saw how it was going, was that the only real question that we had to find out the answer to, and I think you've given your opinion on that answer, and it's very much similar to mine. The only thing we needed to find out is, are we dealing with an Adolf Hitler type situation, whose last order before he killed himself in the bunker was to flood the subway tunnels of Berlin, where so many Berlin residents were hiding from the Allied bombing. They just wanted to survive the bombing. But he thought, if I'm going to go, they have to go too. And I'm just thinking, Iran's leadership feels like the same thing. They realize that playing around with the United States here will likely lead to more bombings and maybe even death for civilians, which, by the way, has been incredibly low. I mean, have we seen any incredibly low numbers like this ever before, considering the amount of bombing that's been going on? But the Iranians seem to want that to happen now. It really feels that way. And I think we're in the same situation. And just like we did with the Nazis, there could be no quarter. Remember, there was Admiral Donitz of Germany who tried to give us kind of a separate, a mitigated peace with them. We rejected that. There's no Admiral Donitz in this situation anyway, but honestly, it seems like the Iranians want to burn it all down.
Oh, don't let that surprise you, Jake, if that's the path they take. Look, they've had several weeks now to prepare these targets that are left and any of the ones that have been reconstituted to put civilians on them, to try to use them as human shields. They were trying to do that with the bridges before the ceasefire started. That's the way these people are. They're no better than the Nazi Germans. Hitler, you bringing up Hitler and his last order is exactly what I would expect from these people. That's the thing that Americans and Westerners have a tough time dealing with, because most of Westerners think that once you get somebody up against the wall, like we really do have the Iranian IRGC, the military, their economy, everything is up against the wall. They don't have very many options left. But you notice they're still sending their little speedboats and their Boston whalers out with machine guns on them trying to hit something. Even though it's meaningless from a tactical perspective, from a strategic perspective, they see this that if they get the president to do some kind of deal, even though they're still shooting at us, they see that as a win and regime survival. But their regime is going down every day. The president is maintaining the blockade. He's not hesitating to use our overwhelming force whenever it's necessary to stop them from attacking commercial shipping or our own Navy and those kind of things. So they see that he's not really weak, even though there's some American press out there trying to say, oh, the president's looking weak. Not in this case. Now, if we weren't doing anything, that would be a different story, but we are. And the president is using his economic power in a devastating way, not just against the Iranians, but it's hurting their main military trading partner and ally, the Chinese, to a very great extent, much more than the public is aware of.
Colonel, what do you make of this story that we found out over this weekend? I'm not shocked by it, but I am a little embarrassed that I had not thought of it. It's reminding me of a course I took in college with the great Warner Schilling, who often admonished our class. It was military weaponry and warcraft. And he often yelled at us to remind us to look at maps regularly. Look at a map. And to see this story about the Russians using the Caspian Sea route to Iran to resupply them with killer drones, so much so that this is a significant resupply going on. To me, this is just such another headache here. Russia just likes being a troublemaker. They don't seem to know how to do anything else, really. They don't actually provide, when they were the old USSR, they never actually improved the lives of the countries they dominated. And it may not be the USSR anymore, Colonel, but they're still not doing any good for anyone, honestly.
Well, are you surprised, though? I'm not surprised.
No.
Look, the Iranians have helped keep the Russians going. They gave them the information on building Shahed drones, trained their folks how to do it, help them set up their own factories. The Russians have long been a military trading partner with the Iranians, so it doesn't surprise me one bit. Are the Russians that much of a factor? No, and we should terminate that ability for that port to receive or send out any gear whatsoever, just like we should be. If there are train trestle bridges or highway bridges from across the border on overland routes from China, which we've also heard about, and stories have been breaking the last couple of weeks about that, they should all be dropped. Stop that traffic now and continue to cut this regime off. We have to do the same thing that we're doing with the Navy blockade, where we're literally shooting the engine and steering gear off of ships with F-18 strafing runs, if it's necessary. To stop ships from running the blockade, we should be stopping ground traffic and air traffic from running the blockade too, because we have to keep them, we have to get them stressed, and they are, but it's not going fast enough. And they obviously are still defiant and are still going to try to make hay in this region and with us and with Europe. And their allies continue to help them.
Yeah. This is so interesting because we're about to have this summit between President Trump and President Xi in China. Mm-hmm. And we know that China has been just as much of a troublemaker here. You mentioned them too. Mm-hmm. They sent them those radars or the equipment that were used to help shoot down that F-15. And, they're going to try to talk economy. They're going to try to talk other things. But at some point, President Trump really values his personal relationship with Xi, which I get. He's just, for President Trump, someone who's been personally demonized as a personal demon all the time, you can see why he wants to talk about how he gets along with people, because he's trying to push back on the narrative that he's brutish and unfriendly, which anyone who's met him in person knows that's not the case. But listen, Colonel, I think the time for that narrative is over. I'm not here to tell President Trump what to talk about or focus on, because he's not going to listen to me anyway. But I think that time for that is over. It's time for us to say, listen, you guys can't try to become the big boys, the superpower in the world, if you're going to be propping up petty little dictatorships like this. It's not even good for you anymore, China. Why don't you do what's right by your people and get out of this mess?
Yeah, I think the Iranian, what's left of the little mosquito fleet there, actually hit a Chinese ship
the other day.
So, they're not getting anything out. Nobody should be surprised by that, because they attacked Qatar. They attacked the UAE. Yeah. They attacked Kuwait. Qatar was housing their proxy leaders. So they're attacking everybody along the Arab coast there, the Arab nations that are supposedly at least be in the same vein as their fellow Muslims, and they don't care. They don't care because they see one thing, and that's their survival and their power, and they think. They must be thinking like Adolf Hitler. I'm glad you brought that up at the beginning of the conversation, Jason.
Well, it's no coincidence. They
have no regard for human life, even their own.
It's no coincidence. I want everyone here not only to read, and we're going to talk about your book after the break, not only to read Colonel Maness's first and new book, What You Can Do About It, but also read, very short book. I don't give long book. I give a lot of long book recommendations. This time I'm not. Matthias Kunstler wrote a book about jihad and the origins of 9/11, and he proved, this is a German man, had no skin in the game one way or the other, German scholar who recently found all the connections between Nazism and Islamism, and there are many. The Nazis funded the Muslim Brotherhood. The Nazis created this genocidal type talk about them. I'm not trying to give the Islamists a pass. I'm not saying, this is just a Nazi influence and they were just whistling Dixie. But they are the last vestiges of Nazism in the world. That's why they sound so much like Hitler all the time. That's why they sound so much like the SS. That's why the IRGC seems so much like the SS, because they are their disciples. Think about it. Matthias Kunstler is his name, a German librarian who found all these documentations, including Hitler's plans to fly planes into the Empire State Building. That's something that resonated with the Islamists, as you might expect. All right. It is now 7:18 almost here on the East Coast. We're here with Colonel Rob Maness. We're going to talk about his new book and what it's all about and get you updated again on the top story. Once again, the top story being President Trump saying totally unacceptable Iran's response to our peace terms. Could the shooting start soon? We'll talk about that. But again, Colonel Rob Maness is joining us when we come right back.
Talk Radio 77 WABC.
And I'm Jake Novak at 7:19 here on the East Coast. Again, our top story, really, it's almost a question. Will the shooting start again between Iran and the United States now that President Trump, we finally got their response. I mean, Iran was supposed to get back to us by Friday night and their response to our peace terms. They dragged it out until today. President Trump saying that their response is, quote, totally unacceptable. We've talked about that so far at the top of the program. Our guest is Colonel Rob Maness, U.S. Air Force retired, full Colonel Rob Maness, I should say. And he has a new book out. It's called What You Can Do About It, Taking Real Action Against Corruption, Radicalism, and Moral Decay to Save America. It was released specifically on April 28th. You can get it on Amazon. I have the page right up here right now. Colonel Maness, tell us about what this book is about, what you're trying to accomplish with it.
Well, thanks, Jake. I appreciate you giving me a chance to talk about it. Look, when I ran for Senate in 2013 and 2014 against Mary Lander and Bill Cassidy, ever since then, my supporters have said, hey, you should really write a biography because they've heard stories from my life and those kind of things. And I didn't want to do that. And I've spent many years thinking about whether I should write a book and deciding to write a book, but I didn't want it to be a pure biography. We do use stories from my life growing up and being in the military and working in the utility, the energy industry and the utility industry after the Air Force, and then going into politics and those kind of things. But the book is about how I view the world and the lenses that I've learned to view the world through to do three things. And they're all three things that the left beats the average American that still believes in the Declaration of Independence at. Not necessarily Republicans, although most Republicans still believe in that, but the Americans that believe in the Declaration and our Constitution. The left out-organizes us, they out-fundraise us, and they out-advocate or act against us. And that is why we're in the predicament we're in this country now. And I want folks to be able to use this book, yes, read about the stories that I tell in it, but also take from those stories ways to think about what is the it that you're always asking the question about what I can do about it. That question, I've gotten that question from the time I was a non-commissioned officer on a two-man team. When my subordinate would ask me the question about a certain issue, what can I do about it individually, to being a commander and having commanders calls and having my troops ask me that question about issues, to having town halls and asking people for their vote, and they're being frustrated about an issue like illegal immigration and border security, and they want to know what I can do about it. That's what Americans do. They want to know what they individually can do about it. Well, this is what I've learned about that, to do those three things so that we can win in the end. The redistricting vote in Indiana is a prime example of the type of situation that I'm talking about. You know, some young men and women got together, got under the banner of Turning Point Action and organized out, raised money and then acted. And what did they do? They beat all those Republican senators, just about, I think all but one, that voted against redistricting Indiana. And now we have a new ball game in town, and it's lighting a fire all over the country. That's exactly what this book is about a way to think about that question, what you can do about it, and then get there to the answers.
You know, participation is something that really people need to feel like they are connected. I'll tell you a story, Colonel. When I was taking the AP political science tests in 1988, I was a senior in high school, spring of 1988, and my class was reviewing previous AP tests to prepare for the test, and we were looking at a question from just a couple of years before that. I think it was the 86 or 85 test, and it was a multiple choice question. Why has voter turnout in elections gone down so steadily since the end of World War II? And there were about 5 or 6 options, and we narrowed it down as a class to 2 things. It was either one, complete apathy, people don't care, and the other option was alienation. People do care, but they see that the government isn't responding to them. They don't trust the government anymore, and they feel like their vote is wasted. And I was shocked when I was told that, according to the answer key, the correct answer was A, apathy, that people don't care. And I was so infuriated by that. I thought to myself, that is just so wrong. That is not my experience. And granted, I was a 17-year-old, almost 18-year-old kid, but I'd had a lot of experience for that age because I'd lived in a lot of parts of the country, most notably in Norfolk, Virginia, among a lot of recently retired officers, including some flag officers. And that wasn't my experience. My experience was the other thing, that there was alienation going on. And I think that is, and I think that, later I found out that their incorrect answer there might have actually been part of, I don't want to say a conspiracy, but an academic push to push this idea that if you're not voting the way we want you to, and not voting at all, it must be because you don't care. It can't possibly be Mr. and Mrs. America that you do care, but you don't see any results from your votes. Because, of course, we're perfect. And to me, that's still the attitude of the political class. So how do you get that across, Colonel, to people that they can make a difference when so much of the establishment seems to not want to respond to the actual people?
Well, and that's one of the things we talk about in the book over and over again is the anecdotes that we use from my life growing up and my career are those that where you're facing insurmountable odds to prevent the right thing from happening to happen. And Americans, I grew up around with men and women that still told stories about people like Colonel David Crockett, who was a congressman from West Tennessee that got kicked out of Congress twice by the President of the United States because the President of the United States, Andrew Jackson, hated him because he stood up against him. Mm-hmm. And he eventually got kicked out for the last time. And I've been on the spot where he stood on the courthouse steps, where my uncle was telling me the story when I was about 6 or 7 years old, and said, "This is where Congressman Crockett said, y'all can all go to hell, but I'm going to Texas." And the rest is history. We have Texas in large part because of the men from Tennessee that David Crockett was leading in that effort, overcoming insurmountable odds. That's what Americans believe in. And it's, that's a simple little story, but a lot of people don't realize that. They think about the Disney character, Davy Crockett, the Wild Frontier. They don't know the real history of it, and that it was the man was an American that didn't come from wealth, it didn't come from a high elite education, but that's the way Americans have thought since before our founding, and that is what we need to instill in our peers and our young people today, so that they can see that yes, in fact, your vote does count. And I agree with you. It's not apathy; it's frustration.
Yeah, I think
are seeing, and I think you're going to see a wave across this country. This redistricting fight has kicked off a wave of realization of people, and if they read my book, they'll see it there too. That yes, we can do it, no matter what the odds are.
Well, and here's the good news about the redistricting fight. Those of you who have been listening to me and following me online, you know that I believe that this decision by the Supreme Court to strike down race as a criterion for districting could be the most economically liberating and maybe even altogether liberating thing for black people in this country since the Emancipation Proclamation. There's a lot of reasons for this. I think this is the end of the feudalism that a lot of black people have been living in this country since the end of slavery, frankly, but certainly in recent decades. But more important, just to make this a little bit quicker, I don't have to go through that whole argument. A lot of black people in this country, Colonel, are about to go from complete afterthoughts to swing voters in key districts. Yes. There's nothing better than being a swing voter, is there?
There isn't. And I'll be honest with you, down here in Mississippi, we've got a blue district that's racially gerrymandered. Everybody knows it. Benny Thompson's in that seat, and he is a communist. You can go see it. That's just a fact. But the the words that are being used to argue against that are all about, I'm reading a post right in front of me from a black legislator in Mississippi saying they're going to do it in the old state house right where the old Confederates seceded from the United States of America. It's a return to slavery. It's a return to bondage. But it's actually the very opposite of that.
That's right.
In Tennessee, where they just did it, the white dude that's held the seat that's supposed to be a black district for 20 years is now going to be out, and the leading candidate to win is a black woman Republican, conservative, to win in the next race.
Yeah, and that white guy is a disgusting guy.
Of unleashing, and that's unleashing empowerment, freedom, and power to be given to all Americans, as it is rightfully theirs anyway, instead of this removing and husbanding power from the people so that people can get wealthy off of it or whatever their intentions are. But in Mississippi, that district, the second district, is the poorest district in the state. Benny Thompson hasn't done anything for those people. They're in devastation all the time. We create 4 red districts, solid districts in this state. The black people of Mississippi will once again have that opportunity that everybody else has, and that is to be free and prosperous. That's all we're asking. But they're going to try to fight us, and they are fighting us as we speak. They're going to call us Confederates, white supremacists. But it's really they who are trying to be the Confederates and secede from what's right in this country. Even the guys in the black power folks in Tennessee said Memphis should secede from Tennessee. They've already said it. Benny Thompson said 2 days ago that there will be a violent civil war if they dare to take that Democrat district out of Mississippi. When, if you look at every state in the northeastern part of this country, you have the same split, 60% Democrat, 40% Republican. We have 60% Republican, 40% Democrat. And you know what? Massachusetts is exactly like that. They have 4 blue districts. We should have 4 red districts. And it's about power, and it's about freedom. And the black people in this state are finally going to get it back like they had it right after the Civil War, when they had so many black Republican senators, governors, lieutenant governors before Jim Crow was implemented and stopped it all. We're about to finally put a stake in the heart of that evil.
Yeah, I think it's such a huge part of this. By the way, this is frustrating me among the right-wing news media as well. All I'm hearing from Fox and from Newsmax and from these other sites is how many new seats the Republicans are going to pick up. All right, I understand that's part of the conversation. But it's so much bigger than that. We are going, 90% of Americans, black people, live in these gerrymandered, feudal, lordships. Or duchies. This is horrible. It's kept them behind for so long. Colonel Rob Maness, if you can stick around for just one more segment, I'd love to talk with you just a little bit more about your book. When we come back, this is Jake Novak. This is Talk Radio 77 WABC. We're talking to Colonel Rob Maness. The name of the book, What You Can Do About It. It's on Amazon, and it's Colonel Rob Maness, Maness. You can find it really quickly. We're going to talk more about it when we come right back.
Talk Radio 77 WABC.
I put the titles of the 2 books we have mentioned just in the last few minutes up on my X account at JakeNY. That's Jake. I was named twice because I was so nice. At JakeNY, the book by Mr. Kunzel, Matthias Kunzel, who wrote about how the Nazis, the real Nazis, started the Islamist terrorism of this world, believe it or not. And of course, we have the book that we're talking about right now, What You Can Do About It by Colonel Rob Maness. Both of those links to where you can buy them up on my X feed right now. Colonel, tell us a little bit about the personal story behind this book. I mean, people always say, I'm going to write a book. I say it all the time too. What finally got you sitting down and putting this thing to paper or on a laptop?
Well, Americans, we love this country. The folks that love this country and love the idea of the Declaration of Independence, the values in that, we're celebrating it this year, the 250th birthday of it, that created this constitutional form of government we have. We love this country, and I'm tired of seeing people sit on the sidelines. I'm tired of hearing people saying my vote won't count. I'm tired of hearing people saying I'm taking my ball and going home. I'm tired of hearing people say things like about this current coming elections going, we're getting creamed and all that stuff, when there's been so many wins racked up by us for America and Donald Trump for America. It's hard for me to keep track of it. So I've been seeing that for years, for a long time. And when I combine that with how I grew up, I had a high school counselor, guidance counselor tell me I wasn't college material, Jake. So I've been presented with insurmountable odds against me, and the wheels of power turning against me, like Davy Crockett was in the area of the country where my mom and daddy grew up, and my aunts and uncles taught me about those kind of stories and everything. And now I have 5 college degrees, in computer systems analysis and design, mathematics. I have 3 master's degrees, 1 from Harvard, because I was presented with an insurmountable judgment against me. And as an American, I see that as an opportunity. And that's why I wrote the book, because we need to teach ourselves and our children and grandchildren that they should see challenges as opportunities and never, ever, ever give up on freedom. Even when in the face of things like the pandemic, like this redistricting fight, like abortion, all of those issues that we have managed to, as not Republicans, but as Americans, have managed to get on the right path again of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which is exactly what most people believe in. Now, we have a left in this country that believes in Marxism and communism and Islamism more than they do those values. And we're going to fight against them. That's the second reason why I wrote this book. I want to give people the tools that they can use to answer that question for themselves and groups of people, so that they can take action and be successful on that action, just like what happened in Indiana with the redistricting vote. We've got a fight here in Mississippi about that. I'll tell you, we've even got to fight some Republicans, because we have Republican legislators. I just heard it this morning, saying things like, well, no, we can't have 4 red districts. It wouldn't be fair, or they're timid about it because they think it'll be 4 weak red districts. Well, we got a 23% advantage across the board in this state. It'll be 4 R plus 20 to 25 districts. Come on, that's not even a swing district right there. But that's the storyline they're given, because they're afraid to do it, because they're going to get called racist. They're already out there. The media is trying to do it. Well, this book, the third reason is people need to understand where they come from, what the question is that they're trying to get answered, the it in that question that they're trying to get answered, and then how to go about doing it and be successful at it, because that's what Americans have been doing for over 250 years.
Yeah,
that's why I wrote the book.
And I like that it's mostly a call to action as opposed to here are the bad guys. I mean, you are identifying what we're up against, but it starts with here's what you need to do. Stop just demonizing and actually do something about it. And again, I think that we've discussed already in this segment exactly what you really pointed right there, what some people on supposedly our side are doing wrong. They're worried about how strong the district's going to be. Instead of, again, they're focusing on these numbers. If they want to not only win elections, but also get an argument that will help change the narrative, they should take the narrative that I'm giving them, which is that this is a new emancipation proclamation. 90% of American black people are living in an economic no-go zone because of this congressional districting. We are freeing them. And I understand people don't want to use terms like master or slaveholder or plantation. I agree. Those are loaded terms. Meanwhile, more accurate is really to compare it to feudalism, the feudal lord, who not only had the political power over the region, but also owned all the business. And we just had this woman in Virginia, the state Senate leader, who had her offices raided. She just happens to own the only pot dispensary in the whole Senate district. Wow, what a surprise. I mean, it's almost like the coal miners. They owed their soul to the company store. I mean, everything is just owned by the people who have the economic and political power, all concentrated in their pockets. And we're freeing you from that feudal lord, from that cruel coal miner 1915 type situation. That if the Republicans don't start taking up that narrative, and you know they won't, Colonel, because no one listens to me, then it'll be their own fault.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is. It's a new birth of freedom, Jake.
Yeah.
It's a new birth of freedom for the people in those districts. I mean, I can't say enough. In the Mississippi 2nd District, it's the most poverty-stricken population in our state.
Forever.
It's contained. It's contained. It's been that way forever. Benny Thompson may be getting wealthy, and his cronies may be. I don't know who's getting wealthy, but the people that are in that district don't have the same equality of economic and opportunity and the freedom that comes with that as somebody else does because of this situation, and this will unshackle that freedom.
And so listen to the message of your book, and everyone, again, listen to the message of this book. Again, the title, What You Can Do About It, Taking Real Action Against Corruption, Radicalism, and Moral Decay to Save America by Colonel Rob Maness, who we've been speaking to for most of this hour. This is the point. Don't just get into the argument like, well, we might win this seat here, and now I'm going to have this majority. That is just so small-minded. We are trying to save this country, and we're doing it. And if we talk about this like the emancipation that it could be, the economic boom that it could be, and not by the way, not just for black people. I mean, when the economy has a funny way of making everybody rich when it does well, right? That's the thing. So, that's Colonel Rob Maness, please get the book, everyone. Again, it's up on my X feed, and everyone should buy it and read it and follow Colonel Maness as well at Rob Maness. A very, very good voice for America. Colonel, thank you so much for giving us so much of your time tonight.
Thank you, Jake. I appreciate it.
Always good to hear from Colonel Maness. All right. When we come back, I want to talk about another story that's very big nationally, maybe bigger than you realize. And it's also big for me personally. I want to talk about the passing of a man named Abe Foxman. He passed away today. He wasn't the actual founder of the Anti-Defamation League, but he made it what it was. And I have some criticisms for him. I know you're not supposed to speak ill of the dead, but if you live a public life and run public organizations within reason, it's worth evaluating your career and your impact upon your death. I'm going to do that, and I know there's a lot of people who might want to hear what I have to say. You might be surprised by what I have to say. We'll be right back.
The Marine Toys for Tots foster care program is bringing hope to children who need it most. Every 2 minutes, a child enters foster care, often with only a small bag of belongings. More than 400,000 children face trauma and uncertainty, many before age 8. This May, during Foster Care Awareness Month, Toys for Tots is creating Room for Joy. In 2025, nearly 375,000 children received comfort through toys, books, and essentials, reminding them they are not alone. Donate now and change a child's life.